are awaiting at this hour the announcement from Bill O'Reilly that he has conclusive proof that NBC has a contractual arrangement with the devil. Our number one story on the countdown. You may laugh, but by taking some vague and rather sad charges by a former NBC News reporter, adding a little stalking, and then filling in the gaps with about a 98% mixture of personal anger and insanity, Billo has shamelessly actually tried to associate this company with Osama bin Laden. There are a few facts Billy left out that kind of make him look like a psychotic again, and we'll get to those. But first, there's also a repeat of what he mistakes for journalism. You'll remember when he tried to ambush Senator Barack Obama in New Hampshire and wound up shoving, or more correctly, trying to shove, a 6'8" Obama staffer. Well, now he's had a minion try the same stunt, more or less, with Jeff Immelt, the CEO of GE, which owns NBC Universal and thus MSNBC.
Mr. Immelt, with Fox News, we'd like to talk to you about your involvement with Iran. Are you still trading with Iran while Iranians are killing Americans in Iraq? You're not selling them airplane parts that they can be used for military equipment?
Now, Mr. Immelt had considerable help in fending off the schmuck, but when O'Reilly comes for you, and if you don't approve of his program or watch it, he has already said he will, you will need to defend yourself from this kind of drive-by television. We thought we'd update a quick course in defense against O'Reillyists, which we first brought you last year. Let's again start with an actual example of an actual roadside O'Reilly attack.
Bill Arkin, how you doing? Fox News. How's it going? Me too. Mr. Arkin, can we talk to you about some of the comments that you made?
Can you leave me alone for just a second?
Actually, no, we'd like to talk to you for a second. How could you say what you said? I mean, don't you think that was really hurtful and harmful to the military families, to the soldiers serving in Iraq? Let's address this.
Now, you might think that the best defense would be putting up an argument. But watch and learn from our simulated interactions with a Billo stalker producer just how wrong that really is.
And how you doing? Fox News. Can we talk to you about some of the comments that you made?
Yeah, well, you know, as the great philosopher Marcus Aurelius said in Germany in 49 AD, sadly, no. You have given Billo the tape he needs, plus an entree into something about old Europe and how his boycott of France led to the election of a conservative there. But now in example 2, we have another response that intuitively sounds right, but is not.
And how you doing? Fox News. Can we talk to you about some of the comments that you made?
Well, as the great Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, if Bill O'Reilly wants to strangle somebody, I'll show you strangling somebody. Hey! Again, very personally satisfying. But now Billy has what he wants, plus he can get Fox security involved. So we move to example number 3, and this won't work either.
And how you doing? Fox News. Can we talk to you about some of the comments that you made?
Yeah. Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes and Rupert Murdoch. Great for the soul. Unfortunately, now you're the lead story on Shepard Smith and probably Access Hollywood. As much as I wish it were not true, the responses thus far have been reactive and not proactive. In example 4, though, we begin to see hints of the correct methodology. Fight ambush with ambush.
Mr. Olbermann, you have a comment?
Yeah. You know, I do, Scooby-Doo. It's like when I was at the World War II Memorial at Malmedy, and I was saying, Billo will not run that tape. He cannot afford to have his audience reminded that he insisted that the Americans were the war criminals at Malmedy and not the Nazis. So congratulations. You have just rendered that interview unusable. But there are still further steps to take, as we see in example 5.
Mr. Olbermann, you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. Funny, I was just saying to Andrea Macris the other day, this too will work well. Bill is desperately trying to pretend that never happened. And yet, in a mano-a-mano conflict such as this, you want to be the one holding the nuclear weapon in your mano. Hence, example 6.
Mr. Olbermann, you have a comment?
Huh? Hey, are you the kid who picks up Bill O'Reilly's loofahs? Or does he get his loofahs himself? Or does he belong to one of those, like, loofah of the month clubs where you get a subscription and the loofahs are sent directly to your house so you have a constant supply of loofahs? There you go. Repeat those words in any combination, intelligible or not, and you will be safe when the O'Reilly attack inevitably comes. Malmedy, Macris, loofahs. As ever, Bill O'Reilly is the Frank Burns of news. What he presents as journalistic conclusions are usually just personal delusions. But given that much of his audience isn't very smart, it operates from the mistaken impression that what it's watching is news. So clown though he may be sometimes, like when he launched this crap about bin Laden and Iran and NBC, he has to be addressed seriously. Let's start with a few things that he did and said that would not be permitted at an actual news organization. The stuttering John routine, the stalking of Jeff Immelt by the kid who can't pronounce Iran. This was recorded last September, but O'Reilly left the verbal impression that his crack troops were racing out on the streets to interview evildoers in response to some sort of breaking news. His crack troops consist of a kid named Jesse who calls the place Iran. Second point, O'Reilly also insisted that the factor has confirmed that GE subsidiaries are doing business with Iran. Details? Any details? One example? One source? One hint about one example or one source? And then there's the pathetic attempt to link NBC through graphics to Osama bin Laden. Billo even made a point to note that Jeff Immelt became CEO of GE on September 7th, 2001, 4 days before 9/11. The kind of a connection a mental patient would make. It had been sad enough when John Hockenberry did something like this. In a publication produced by MIT, our old colleague here left the impression that GE refused to permit him to talk to anybody in the bin Laden family for a story for NBC Dateline. A conspiracy theory that kind of deflates when you realize that bin Laden's half-brother, the Swiss businessman Yeslam bin Laden, gave his first interview to Matt Lauer for a Dateline episode that ran in July 2004. Lauer won an Emmy for that interview. It was in all the papers. There's also a serious problem with John's article, which O'Reilly tried to inflate into the Watergate tapes. Hockenberry writes that on September 17th, 2001, he was pitching a story to his Dateline bosses on al-Qaeda, quote, just emerging as a suspect in the attacks, unquote. By the afternoon of 9/11, al-Qaeda was more than just a suspect, and if 6 days later John thought it was just emerging as the cause of our nightmare, there were a lot more obvious reasons why they didn't let him do any more complicated stories. But the saddest and most serious part of this latest O'Reilly mess is that none of this actually matters to Billo. The constant attacks on NBC and GE management, the stories he makes up about stock price and ratings decline, the predictions that I would be fired by December of 2006, even this base, insane attempt to link this company and what you see on this network to bin Laden and Iran, Iran, he would stop all this tomorrow. He has said as much. His bosses have said as much to my bosses. If I'd stop calling him out every time he lies or endorses the forces of hate and fear in this country or breaks another tenet of journalism, of ethics, of humanity, if I'd just stop calling him a bully, he'll stop bullying NBC and GE. Well, I won't. And most importantly, my employers have never asked me to. But here's a frightening thought to conclude with. If somewhere there is an American corporation that is actually linked to bin Laden or Iran, Bill O'Reilly would ignore it, providing that that corporation was nice to Bill O'Reilly.